William. Alrighty. I think we shall begin soon if that's okay with our speakers. Yeah, William? Okay, great. What? Okay, ready? Okay. Let's open the session, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Zahra and I will be moderating this session today. This event is currently live on Facebook and Radio IMSA YouTube as well as Zoom, of course. Massive thank you once again to Omdidik and all of Radio IMSA crew for helping us stream this. Thank you to every person who played a part in developing this event. So of course, I'd like to make a major shout out to the IMSA youth team and particularly Dila and Hanan, and also a special shout out to Mariha for helping me prepare for this discussion. So before we actually begin our discussion today, I'd like to introduce our event and our goals for this evening/afternoon and perhaps provide a little bit of context. Our session for today is titled Combating Anti-Blackness Within Our Communities. And to be absolutely clear and specific, we do mean this community. So as we know, IMSA, the Indonesian Muslim Society of America, as given by its name, is a largely non-Black organization. As non-Black people of color, we have an immense amount of responsibility and privilege and learning as well as unlearning to do. On top of that, we need to recognize and address the anti-Blackness that exists within our spaces and within our households. So Ibram Kendi, in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, says, the opposite of racist isn't not racist, it is anti-racist. And what is the difference? So one endorses either the idea of a racial hierarchy as a racist or racial equality as an anti-racist. One either allows racial inequities to persevere as a racist or confronts racial inequities as an anti-racist. There's no in-between safe space of not racist. So effectively, we need to work actively and continuously to be constructive allies in a system that is inherently racist. In doing so, it's imperative that we center Black voices and Black experiences. This shouldn't be a new conversation. This is a historic issue that has persisted continuously, and inshallah, we all can strive to make solid changes and break generational mindsets. So I'd like to introduce to you our speakers now, and I'm personally really looking forward to the insight they have for us today and from what they would like to share from their experiences. Thank you both again for your time. So I think I'll introduce each of them one by one, and then after their introduction, if they would like to have some few opening words, and then, yeah, we can go from there. So firstly, we have with us today Walia. Walia is a recent graduate with a degree in chemical and biomolecular engineering, mashallah. During her time in university, she was involved with the United Muslims and Minority Advocates, an outreach and interfaith student organization centering minority Muslims. And besides Walia was also involved with her school's BMSA, so the Black Muslim Student Association. Just a quick personal note, Walia and I met through so our friendship is actually rooted in fighting for the marginalized Muslim communities on campus and at large. So it's very much a full circle moment for me to be introducing her to you all right now. Walia, do you have some just like brief opening hellos?
Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you all for having me here and for allowing me to share my experience and just talk about being a Black Muslim in our society today. Zahra gave a perfect introduction about me, but basically, like she said, I'm a recent graduate from the University of Illinois with the chemical and biomolecular engineering, alhamdulillah. And while I was a student in Illinois, I was engaged in activism, specifically with Ummah, which is the underrepresented Muslims and minorities advocate. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit background about Ummah. So what we do, Ummah is an outreach. It's an outreach and student organization, and our goal is basically to build community that addresses political, global, and socioeconomical issues, while also promoting a comprehensive understanding of the world around us, like the issues around us. We also strive to establish inclusivity, not only in the Muslim community, but on campus in general. And we do so by building a strong partnership with other student organizations that share mutual interest. And she also mentioned that I'm part of the MSA, which is the Black Msa, which is the Black Muslim Student Association. I'm really happy to discuss how that came along and how I became involved with Ummah later on in this session. But we created BMSA just to create a safe space for Black Muslims and other minority Muslims, because I don't know if most people notice, but there are minorities within the Muslim community, specifically Black people and Latinx people. And we did this because we didn't feel welcomed or acknowledged in the usual MSA, and I'm really happy to discuss this later. But we started this organization last fall semester, and alhamdulillah, we've made so much progress. Now we're an established student organization at the University of Illinois. And I just look forward to what's coming this semester, this fall semester. Thank you.
Thank you, Alia. That's great. If I'm like looking over here, she's in my apartment and I'm like looking at her. Just a heads up. But okay, so also with us today is Sister Ismahan Abdullahi, who is the executive director of MAS PACE, the Muslim American Society. So MAS National's Public Affairs and Civic Engagement Division. MashaAllah. She's a fierce advocate, a community organizer, and an activist working for social justice and equity. Based in the San Diego area, Sister Ismahan has been a leader in several local and national Muslim and community-based organizations and institutes. So welcome, Sister Ismahan. Thank you for speaking with us today. And if you had a few opening words for us as well.
Yes, thank you so much. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. It's such an honor for me to be here, and such an important conversation, and a critical conversation. One of the things that I really love, and this is one of the reasons why I agreed, even though I know the brothers who are reaching out, but it's a space that's cultivated by youth. Is a space that I love just even benefiting from. So I'm actually here, and I'm really excited, Williat, to hear your point of views and just, the conversation. I think this is going to be an engaging discussion, going to help us get a little bit uncomfortable, and that's okay, alhamdulillah. But again, really honored to be here with you all.
Thank you. We're honored to have you, actually, and for your time. Yeah. So, okay. Again, just to bring it back to our intended topic of discussion, in order to address and discuss the topic of just combating anti-Blackness in our communities, it's important that we better understand the issue itself. So just the expanse and the reach of anti-Blackness within our communities. And again, centering Black voices and Black experiences is critical here. So I'd now like to open the floor to our speakers and ask them to share perhaps their perspectives and insights on anti-Blackness within Muslim communities, or even just in general, and then what good constructive allyship looks like. Waliyat, if you want to begin.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I would like people to know, like, I don't think a lot of people know this, but there is anti-Blackness in the Muslim community, and it's something that I've experienced, and it's something that my friends have experienced. And it's not pretty, because you can imagine we're already facing racism in like the world today, and then we feel as though we're coming into a safe space, which is like the Muslim community, and then we're shunned just because of the color of our skin. So that's not pretty. But one thing that I would say is I would implore everyone to like educate themselves on like the history of Black people in Islam, and just anti-racism in general, because the basis of racism is an ideology, or like the belief that one race is superior to the other, which is what we know. But we also need to understand racism in Islam. Like, we have to understand that the Prophet, peace be upon him, also he struggled against racism. And you can tell, like, or we probably can't tell, but there are a lot of Black people, a lot of Black companions with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which held important positions. And I know that most people, when it comes to like Black Muslims or like Black person with the Prophet, everyone screams Bilal, but there are other people except for Bilal, and we need to educate ourselves about this. Like, I feel like once people start to know about this people, then maybe, just maybe, they can see us Black Muslims as Muslims, not just Black Muslims, you know? For example, there have been times where I have to prove to people that I'm actually a Muslim. They're like, are you Black or are you a Muslim? You know, and it's like kind of offensive because sometimes it's like, oh, can you read a verse in the Quran to prove that you're a Muslim? You know, and that gets to you. But there were a few people that I found out that were companions of the Prophet and held important positions. So, for example, Ayman, she was a wet nurse for the Prophet, and she was kind of like a mother to him. I don't know if you guys know, but she was a Black Ethiopian woman, and she was with the Prophet for a long time. There was also Hamid ibn Maslama. May Allah be pleased with him. He was a famous Sahabi for the Prophet, and he was the knight of the Prophet. Like, everyone knew him to be the knight of the Prophet, but these people are not mentioned because they're Black, you know? And another thing that I noticed is that most Muslims do not practice Islam for what it is. And the sister here can correct me if I'm like making any mistakes or saying things that are like not right. But from what I notice is that most people do not practice Islam for what it is. They just practice Islam based on what their family tell them, what their parents tell them, or what their communities tell them. And it's like Islam for them turns like a culture thing. So it's not like you're actually practicing Islam. It's like you're just doing this culture and like you're listening to your parents. So I feel like we need to unlearn a lot of things in order for us to like combat anti-Blackness in Islam. So for example, Ummah, the reason why I joined Ummah. So I transferred from a community college from Chicago to the University of Illinois. And transferring here, I didn't know anyone, like I didn't have any friends. So the first thing that came to me was, oh, let me reach out to the Muslim community so I can make friends. So I did reach out to the Muslim community. And going into my first event, it was like, okay, this is weird because I was the only Black Muslim in there. So it didn't feel like MSA to me. It felt like an Arab South Asian association, if that makes sense. It did not feel like an MSA to me, but it was okay because I was like, okay, we're all Muslims. Like, I can be friends with you guys. That's okay. So I sat through the whole meeting and I just noticed that I was sitting by myself and no one was sitting next to me, it was like, okay, let's see where this is going to go. And also transferring as a junior, I noticed that most people already had their groups and their cliques. So it was kind of hard to make friends. So I understand that part. But it just felt really weird because I just felt like this outsider and this outcast. And everyone was like, oh, did you see that Black Muslim that just joined MSA? Did you see that Black Muslim that just joined MSA? So like it just felt like a really uncomfortable position for me. That's why I was like, you know what, I have to like withdraw myself from this, from this space because I don't feel welcomed here. So that's why I joined Ummah, because Ummah just created a really safe space for me. And it's not even only about my race, like my identity and like other aspects of being a Muslim. Ummah just covers everything for me. And I remember like there was this time I was on Twitter and I found out that there's this word that the Arabs used to describe Black people, which is called abdi. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it actually means slave. And they only use that for Black people. And that's kind of offensive because when you try to correct them, their counter argument is that, oh, but we're all slaves in front of Allah. But it's like, okay, what if I call you Abdi? Are you okay with that? And then they get offended by that. So, there's a lot of anti-Blackness in our community that I just feel like it goes deeper than just what the surface is or like just what we see every day. Like it goes deeper into our families and like our communities and like alhamdulillah for this platform we get to like educate people on what anti-Blackness is. And another thing that I noticed is when a Black person accepts Islam, it's a good thing, alhamdulillah. It's like a good reception, everyone is happy, oh, there's a new Muslim. But have you guys noticed when a white person accepts Islam, like how the Muslims like act towards that person? Like I have a personal experience, which I'm going to share later, but I noticed that when a white person accepts Islam, it's like paradise. It's like they put this white person in a high position where it's just like, oh my God, let's make them a leader. Let's just do this or let's do that. Or like, welcome new sister or welcome new brother or whatever. I remember way before I joined Ummah, I had a friend and she reverted to Islam. And I took her to the mosque and I took her to MSA spaces just so she becomes familiar with the Muslim community. And then I started to notice that like most of the people that what I considered friends or like people that I knew, you know, before. Once I brought her to the mosque, I was ignored, and it was like, oh my God, like I don't want to mention her name. Let's just say her name is Sarah. It's like, oh my God, Sarah, how are you? And I'm just standing there. It's like, okay, I'm here too. Hi. Or if she gets to the mosque before me, everyone just goes to sit next to her, and it's like, oh my God, how are you? How's this? How are you doing? And she started to feel uncomfortable because they started to put her in this position that she felt uncomfortable with. Like she just wanted to be a part of the Muslim community. But it's just like the ignorance of people, and this just affects this is just an effect of racism that just put her in a position that she didn't want to be in. And most people see racism as some type of like superiority on one part of a race, but it's also an inferiority complex, and it's like feeling inferior based on the color of your skin. And this I lost my train of thought. But anyways, so what I'm trying to get at is I would say that education is really important. And I know most of us like again I said learned Islam from like family members or like from our family, from our parents, but it's just important to learn Islam for the way that it is, and like notice that racism is a huge part in the Muslim community. Like it's not only in the United States, it's not only in the world, but it's like also a huge part in the Muslim community. Like I'm scared of going to Saudi Arabia to perform Hajj just because like I know how I'll be stared at. I know how like what people would say to me. Like I just know it. And that's because I've performed Hajj before and I have experience from this. And it just didn't feel pleasant to me. And as a Black Muslim woman and sister can also like testify to this, like already fighting injustice with the world, and just imagine the community you feel to be safe in is also pushing you away. You just feel like an outsider standing in the middle of like, I don't know, like a lot of things. That's just what I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Waliat, especially for sharing with us and opening up about your experiences. Particularly, I think something that we should all take note of is the fact that Black Muslims, they're having to like cultivate their own spaces within the Muslim community, and the Muslim community is always like championing themselves on being like super inclusive and super opening, and like the whole like one ummah mindset, quote unquote, or whatever. But when it comes to real life and just real application of these marginalized people, that's just not the case. Like they have to find their own spaces and they have to make their own spaces, such as Ummah, not Ummah, but like Ummah, the organization for Waliyat and BMSA and things of that sort. Yeah. Another great point was just like learning about our history outside of the lenses that we are taught. So going further and educating ourselves on the Black Sahaba of the Prophet and all the important people around him. So I would also just like to say that I forgot to mention this before. If you guys have questions for the panelists, please send them my way. I think my name under here is Outreach Department, but yeah, or just put them in the chat publicly. Inshallah, we'll get to them and pass them on to the panelists. Okay, so Sister Ismahan, if you also would like to share on your insight and perspectives on good allyship and then also anti-Blackness within the Muslim communities, inshallah.
Absolutely. So I think it goes without saying, and Waliyat, you mentioned this, anti-Blackness does exist. So imagine being a minority within a minority within a minority, right? So subhanAllah, and that's often what Black Muslims feel like, you know, it's a lot of Muslim spaces, especially non-Black Muslim spaces, there isn't that sense of welcome overall. Even though there's the good experiences, it still does not negate the fact that there are those anti-Blackness kind of experiences that folks have felt. And then imagine being in a lot of other spaces, and all of a sudden your Muslimness is what stands out, right? So there's not a specific camp where you feel welcomed in. So now all of a sudden you're a minority within this group, you're a minority within this group, and in the larger context, you're a minority. So I think one of the things that I kind of want to mention is understanding the root causes of this and naming it. And a lot of folks are not as comfortable naming this. And I guess let me just backstep and start with where this whole concept of supremacy kind of came through. And some of you may have seen me talking about this before. It's really thinking about the first sin that was committed by Iblis. And it was one where Shaitan, at that moment, Iblis, he felt superior to Adam alayhi salam. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, subhanAllah, from clay. And in that clay was sand from multiple different areas of the world. There was red sand, there was black sand, there was yellow sand, there was white sand, you name it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the sands of this earth together and created Adam in the form of a clay, in the form of a man. And we've seen that the entire time Shaitan was afraid. He was looking, as Adam was clay before the ruh, before the spirit was breathed into him. He kept looking. I was like, what is this? What's going on? You know, he was unsure of what was being created. And then so that created a sense of uncertainty, a sense of fear, which kind of the fear of the unknown, which led to a sense of arrogancy when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Iblis and the angels to bow down to Adam alayhi salam. So in that commandment, and Allah asked them to bow down to Adam out of respect, he said, you made me from fire and you made him from clay. Like, clearly I'm better than him because you made me from fire, even though there was no standard, no God-given standard about what is better, clay or fire. It was just both unique creations in and of itself. But he had that sense of arrogancy to assume a supremacy over another creation. And up until this day, that's what we're fighting against, is that sin of shaitan, the sins of arrogance, the sins of supremacy, and the way it manifests in this world through white supremacy. And so a lot of countries have been torn up by white supremacy, but predominantly our African continent. And since before America became a country, you know, the slave ships that were brought over to the shores of the New World to sustain a capitalistic kind of like system that preyed on the backs of our Black brothers and sisters that we're fighting off till this day. And many folks always say, well, slavery has ended, you know, and, you know, in reality, it hasn't. It has changed its form numerous different times through the Jim Crow system. And I promise you, whatever you learn in high school, whatever they teach you of history, unlearn it, because it's completely different, the reality of what happened as opposed to what they teach you in the books. And so when we're dealing with this concept of white supremacy, many folks are not comfortable naming it and addressing it. And I want us to kind of like do that, because when we're talking about anti-Blackness within the Muslim community, we don't see the ways that the impacts of white supremacy show up in our society. So when we make small comments are like, hey, don't be out on the sun too long, you're going to get tan, you're going to get dark, you know, when you make certain comments like that, or, you know, it's a brother or a sister, and most likely the sisters, more so than brothers, come to ask you for their hand that are of the Black community, all of a sudden it's like, no, you know, we want to marry someone who's lighter, and just the more kind of like microaggressions in which it shows up. Or when I think Waliyat touched upon this, like you sometimes have to prove your Islam. Like, you know, subhanAllah, they're like, oh, when did you convert? And you're like, hold up, my family and generations of my family have been Muslim. When did you convert, right? SubhanAllah. So dealing with anti-Blackness within our community means we have to be honest about understanding the ways that we have not really reconciled with ourselves the true teachings of Islam. Yes, Islam came out to eradicate racism. Yes, Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam made it very clear that no Arab is better than a non-Arab, that a Black and a white, nobody's better. What makes us unique and special in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what's in our heart. And again, I'm paraphrasing the teaching here. But in order to deal with anti-Blackness in the community, we have to start with ourselves. And we have to make sure that we're doing that unlearning. We have to do that educational piece, which is going to require us to really get out of our comfort zones and be comfortable learning and seeing the lived experiences of people like me and Sister Waliyat and so many others, and asking in what ways am I perpetuating the very same systems that I'm saying I'm against? Because sometimes we're comfortable addressing systemic racism outside, but we're not comfortable addressing it within. And because it is uncomfortable, that's when the most learning is going to happen, inshallah. So, and maybe I'll stop right there to be able to provide folks with more time to ask questions and have more of a conversation. But to address anti-Blackness within our communities means being courageous enough that even if you're not Black, that if you are not in an environment, you're not in an environment where that kind of training is provided on a daily basis, then we have to get out of our comfort zones and seek out the resources that we need to really think about how can I be an anti-racist, because it's not enough for me to be like, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, I firmly believe in that. But now you have to live it, right? You have to live it in the way it shows up in your life, in your friends, if they're using the N word, if they're using the A word in Arabic or whatever language. Every language has its own thing, subhanallah, in ways in which we kind of perpetuate the very same harms that we're fighting against. And it's going to require the second thing, that courage to really deal with it, because sometimes you are going to be the only voice pushing back on this, especially when it comes to our elders, right? And especially when it comes to like a lot of community spaces. But it's going to take a lot of courage, and for us to say this is not what Islam teaches. Yes, Islam is perfect, but Muslims are not. And to deal with anti-Blackness, we have to name it. We have to be courageous enough to deal with it. And three, not be comfortable when things of that nature are said or done around us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Ismahan. Extremely well put, especially just, I think two notes that are sort of correlating is the fact that we constantly say that, like, oh, Islam was here to eradicate racism. We all know the same, like, 3 hadith that we recite immediately. Someone says Islam is racist. But if we're not applying that to our day-to-day lives, if we're not actually acting on that, then it's useless. You have to practice what you preach, or otherwise it look really ingenuous and really insincere. So yeah, the it's a really great note to remind ourselves that we do in fact have to be uncomfortable. We have to force ourselves out of these comfort zones. But if you truly believe that Islam is here to eradicate racism, why don't you start with yourself and start with your own household? Like, it just make it make sense, you know? But yeah, okay, inshallah. So let me take a look at.
Can I add an extra point real quick?
Of course.
Okay. I'm trying to be conscious of being able to give as much time for questions and comments. But the other thing that I really, and Williat, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, is dealing with anti-Blackness within the community. For so many years, we've talked about, hey, we have to address it. It's important. It's critical. And folks, at least to that level, not everybody, trust me, I've seen the other side. Folks at a certain level agree with that, right? But then when it comes to the hard work of addressing this, there's a little bit of uncomfortability. So let me give an example. When it comes to issues that have been impacting our Black community, both and again, when I say Black community, it's not a monolith of a community, but when it comes to issues that are impacting them, such as police brutality, and is impacting other folks as well, but predominantly within our Black community, how many of us actually see this issue as our issue, right? When we're seeing redlining, when we're seeing voter suppression that is really meant to keep communities of color, from exercising their right to vote, from using their power to create the kind of like change that they need to see, or elect the folks that they need, that can enact on the legislation that they need and the policies that they need for their lives to matter, then how many of us see those issues as our issues, right? So sometimes we tend to be in our own silos of whatever cultural background that we're part of, and we see specific issues that are arising from within our culture or back home in whatever country, and you can insert whatever country you want. We see those issues as being our issues. That if something is happening, for instance, right now I'm of a Somali background, that I'm like, this is happening in Somalia, this famine is occurring, I need to make sure that I'm addressing this, and all of a sudden I'm putting a lot of energy. If I'm not addressing the hunger in my city, especially within the inner cities, then how much am I really seeing the intersections of our fight and in the intersections of our struggle? There's this saying that people always say that none of us are free until we are all free, when reality is nobody's going to be free until our Black community is free. And until we can eradicate racism both within the hearts of humanity, and that can only happen through the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also through systemic change as well. And us being able to see that our liberation is bound with one another, because the way that white supremacy works is it divides and conquers. It makes folks who are struggling within the same socioeconomic status be separated because of the color of their skin, simply because the system that we're under, and it's global, it's not just unique to the United States. We're seeing anti-Blackness in almost every corner of the world, subhanallah. So the system is meant to divide and conquer. So how can we get out of those silos? How can we get out of those comfortable kind of like spaces that we're in to confront it, both on a systemic level and both on an individual, familial, kind of like societal level, inshallah.
Do you want to add to that?
No, I feel like she said everything perfectly, like comparing like the racism in our society today to like that in the Muslim community. It's just about, like, again, what I said, education, just like unlearning a lot of things, and like just being aware of like the oppression and just everything. Well, I wouldn't say everything about being Black, but just everything about like the Black Muslim community. And I also want to add that the Latinx community, like Muslims, also face this type of issues also. And I've noticed that like they're completely shunned from our community, just as the way like we Black Muslims are shunned from our communities too. So it's just like understanding what's going on and understanding like the microaggression. And I know like most people are not intentionally doing it, but like just understand how it feels as a Black Muslim in a space like that, when you don't feel welcomed, by the people that you feel as though you should be welcomed by.
Very, very well said, William. I guess sort of on a similar note, on just, are we echoing? No, we're not. Okay. On a tangential note on just trying to find spaces within spaces that you should already be welcome in. Do you want to talk more about like your experiences cultivating the Black Muslims Student Association?
Okay. Yes, I would love to. So I think we started a group chat. When I left the MSA, I met a few other Black Muslims, and it's like, oh, actually, before I left the MSA, it was like, oh, you're a Black Muslim. Why aren't you an MSA? And they're like, why are you an MSA? And they've been at the U of I like before me. So it's just like, oh, this is what happened. And then we got to share experiences, being in that space and how we just didn't feel welcomed. And we decided to create like, it started off as a group chat. We called it the Black Muslima because it was just like us girls. And we would like come together and like just talk and about issues about being Black and being Muslim. So I think that's how it started, and that's how I deviated from like the MSA, and it was just like a Black Muslima thing. But then we got so busy and we didn't really focus on the Black Muslim, so it kind of died down. We still have the group chat and we text from now and then, but it just died down. But then we met like other Black Muslims, and we found out that there's more of us, than more of us than I thought. And it's just because they left the MSA the way I left the MSA, and we had similar experiences. And there was also an event that Ummah had. It was I've forgotten the title, but it was just basically having a Black Muslim panel and something similar to this, and just like discussing what it is being Black and Muslim. And then there I got to meet like a lot of Black Muslims, and then we decided, oh, let's create a Black MSA, so we created a space, again, not only for Black people, but also for like minorities within the Muslim communities. But it's called Black MSA because it's mostly for Black Muslims. And I think that's a safer space than the MSA, to be honest, at least for me. No shade.
Yeah. Even honestly, just even without name dropping, a lot of Muslim spaces tend to be heavily Desi or South Asian Arab anyways. So it's really just the whole cultivation of the marginalized Muslim making their own space within these communities has been a really ongoing, persistent issue to begin with. So thank you for talking about that as well, inshallah. So I did get a few questions if we would like to move to those. Okay, cool. So I think Muslims are largely at fault for immediately name dropping Bilal radiallahu anh when we are in a conversation about Black Muslims. How do we avoid tokenization of the Sahaba within our conversations of anti-Blackness?
That directed to me.
You can go for it.
I'll let sister answer that.
So my question, every time someone name drops Bilal, subhanallah, and so they're just like, oh, well, Bilal, and I'm like, okay, we know Bilal, subhanallah, we know the status that he has with the Prophet ﷺ, and the status he has with Allah. Like, subhanallah, Nabina Muhammad ﷺ, he had a dream where he heard Bilal's footsteps. Nobody's denying, the subhanallah, like just the status that Bilal had in both in the life of the Prophet ﷺ and in the eyes of Allah. But my question is always about, if Bilal is our first go-to, then that sometimes is an indication that in your personal life you may not have any Black friends. And I know folks are not comfortable with me saying that, but that's the reality. Folks have always name dropped Bilal. I'm just like, okay, can you tell me your immediate circle, and you don't even have to tell me their names, but do you know someone that is Black? And if you do, and you're name dropping, then subhanallah, then just let you know that you're creating an environment that might be uncomfortable for your Black friend to speak up, and just call you out on certain things. And that's the reality. And again, when I say be uncomfortable, that's what I meant by uncomfortability. So in order for us to expand on our knowledge of the Sahaba, the Black Sahaba around the Prophet ﷺ, we have to make sure that that's in line with what our life shows. Islam is not, it does not exist in a vacuum. It's not like, hey, here's the goals. These are the steps to go to Jannah. Way to go. Like, have fun. It's about applying it in a life that is surrounded by constant battles and constant games of shaitan, right? And understanding that, yes, your goal is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that path of pleasing Allah, in order for us to understand what ummah is, not the organization, but the concept of nation, as Muslims in the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, ask yourself, your immediate family, your immediate friends, some people are blessed to live in kind of like a mixed family setting or be able to go to school with folks, but what kind of culture are we creating around us? Because the echo chamber around us is going to dictate our world perspective. So if we're surrounded, by folks that just look like us, that speak the same language, that eat the same food as us, then you're doing something wrong. You're not doing something right. Yes, there is that comfortability that comes with being within our culture. But at the same time, you have to push yourself out of that comfortability. And what made the Sahaba so formidable, so powerful, so amazing was that the bonds that tied them was connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to tribal, affiliations, not to cultural affiliations. I mean, if you look at the whole Arab race, subhanallah, their mother is Hajar, who was a Black woman, who was Abyssinian, right? So thinking back to those roots of who we are as Muslims, we stand on a heritage that is rich. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And for us to name them without emulating them, it says a lot about what we're taking seriously in our lives, subhanallah. So I again, folks might be a little uncomfortable with that, but I've never been shy from my words, subhanallah. So I guess that's just a check for us to realize that, and one more thing I want to say about this also is, when I said about the kind of culture that we're cultivating, the culture that we're kind of creating, it's so critical. Being welcoming is not about putting on a smile and just, saying, hey, you're what more. Sometimes people are like, well, what are folks talking about when they're talking about welcoming? I haven't said anything. Sometimes it's the silence. Sometimes it's the emptiness. Sometimes it's the lack of what you're doing and the warmth in which you do it that creates that culture. Because I know that's some of the pushbacks that folks sometimes give is, what do you mean? How are we creating anti like blackness like culture within our space? It's about how you greet folks, you know. And I'm not going to go into the different experiences. I think William touched on it beautifully. What are we doing to really push ourselves to see each other for who we really are, and naming these harms as we see them, inshallah. So that could be my advice to that question.
Mashallah. Thank you so much. Yeah, really, really a great point that I had never really thought of, is that if you are in fact just immediately name dropping Bilal, you really don't have like Black folks around you, and it shows. Like if that is your immediate go-to. But yeah, mashallah, just the fact that if you are continuously surrounding yourself with people who already have the same mindset as you, then there's no space for you to grow as well, or the people around you, because you're just the echo chamber, as you quite well put. But yeah, mashallah. Well, did you want to add to that on tokenization of Bilal radiallahu anh? I know you talked about it briefly earlier as well, but yeah.
I think sister like spoke about it beautifully, and like I also like talked about it earlier. Like as she said, just check your space and like check who you're friends with. If it's always Bilal you mentioned, you know, like you even have Black friends, and if you have Black friends, like how comfortable are they with you as a Muslim? So I think sister beautifully talked about it.
Yeah, largely agreed, honestly, mashallah. It really is a self-reflection on the people you have around you, people who are comfortable around you, actually, more than that. So
Before we move to the question, can I add something? You just
yeah,
made me realize as you said that. This does not mean that, hey, you know, you go into Black neighborhood and say, hey, I need Black friends. This is, some people surprisingly they take it like that's exactly what we mean. That's not what we're talking about. Authentic relationships that are transformational, not transactional. Not for you to be like, hey, I have a Black card, like here's my Black friend card, you know, beyond just Bilal. So I think it's about building those authentic relationships, and that comes with working together for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing a service for the community together, meeting folks where they're at, you know, going in and listening, being comfortable with recognizing that, you know, you're going to be in uncomfortable kind of like space because you're not used to it, right? And even if you are used to it, understand that the culture of America was built on the backs of our African American community and on the backs of stolen land from our Native American community. So understanding that historical context and what it led up to till this day, you know, subhanallah. So thinking about that, you know, think about ways that you can show up in an authentic and transformational way where you're building relationships for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not necessarily just to kind of like have a checklist of like, okay, that Black neighborhood, I gave out this or I did service or whatever. This is not a moment of charity, it's a moment of justice, as some folks say.
yes, mashallah. Yeah, that is also a great reminder that like don't just have people around you that you can tokenize. That's more harmful than anything, honestly. But yeah, so I guess in regards to, this seems to be more of like an internal discussion or for non-Black folks. But so in regards to just like the people you surround yourself with, how do you suggest, I know a lot of like youth tend to have some sort of fear in like losing their friendship or connections with people when they catch them like acting on microaggressions or even like explicit racism. Um, so I guess how would you suggest to the youth like addressing these hard conversations with the folks around them?
So are you talking about like how non-Black Muslims? What, could you repeat your question real quick?
So basically like oh my bad. For the youth that like want to address explicit acts of racism or even just microaggressions, but are also uh, afraid of like repercussions within their friend groups, things like that.
Um, I don't think you should be afraid of repercussions, to be honest. Like, I don't think that should come. But I mean, it's normal. It could be normal, but I don't think that should be a thing. Just think that should be a thing. But just because, like, I know for myself as a Black Muslim, when I see someone that's like trying to address this issue or like understanding that they're acting a certain way that's making me feel uncomfortable and they're trying to like, I don't know, like be better. That makes me more comfortable with them. And like, I don't think that they should be uncomfortable when they try to like express themselves. Because to be honest, it's all about like learning and unlearning a lot of things. Like I'm still learning and unlearning a lot of things myself too. And I make mistakes. And um, once you start making those mistakes and you just don't prove ignorance in front of your Black friends or like Muslims in general, then I just feel like that opens like a safe space for Black Muslims. That opens a safe space for us to like tell you how we feel about whatever it is that you're doing. Like, oh, or like, I don't know if you see what I'm saying, but as long as you are not ignorant about any certain situation and you're just like being genuine and it just seems like you want to learn and unlearn about your past behaviors or your current behaviors, then I think that just opens like a safe space. So I don't think you should feel uncomfortable in any way, at least not to me.
Yeah, I would largely agree with that. Honestly, I think it's come to a point where it's like it's just time to do it. Just cut the rope if you need to, honestly. But Sister Ismahan, if you also had any notes to add on that front.
I think subhanallah, like there's a level of grace that we have to afford to each other at this time, and living in a society where for youth up until like you're 25 they treat you like you're a kid, society in general, right? And always being told what to do and here are the rules and this is how you should conform and so on and so forth, and it gets frustrating and it gets annoying, and I feel it. I mean, I've been doing youth work for a very long time, and at one point I was a youth myself that grew up in this system. And so understanding that, like, subhanallah, like you're the leaders of today. I mean, just look at the space that you just all cultivated, right? And so I'm thinking about the example of like Mus'ab ibn Umair, who was young, he was a youth, he was fly, and then he had everything in Medina at that time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And he came from a rich kind of privileged family, and to the point that when he accepted Islam, his mom was, you know, imprisoning him in his own home without giving him any food. And when he passed away, he had a shroud that barely covered his entire body. Like the Prophet ﷺ was crying, right? So those are the examples that we adhere to. The idea that as youth you are the leaders of today. So you're going to have tough conversations and be comfortable in those conversations. And then the second thing is also recognizing that this system also had its impact, especially when it has displaced our parents and our grandparents in so many different ways. Like nobody has escaped the touch of white supremacy. Looking at the indigenous kind of like cultures right now that are being threatened by deforestation and the capitalistic system, right? Like they've been isolated from this world, and all of a sudden we're bringing the evil to them in the middle of the forest. Subhanallah, an example I can give is the indigenous community in Brazil. So thinking about the ways that we can hold grace with each other and learn and unlearn. So some conversations are going to be really difficult, but at the same time, we're also not each other's enemy, so to speak, and recognizing who that is going to be important, because sometimes, say for instance, I'm arguing with my grandma, for instance, and saying like that's not a comment, an appropriate comment to make. There's a way for me to go about it in such a way that I honor my elders, and at the same time, like help them kind of like decolonize their mind. So it's a heavy role to play, and so give yourself the grace that you can handle it, inshallah.
That's a really good reminder, especially for youth and young adults, just starting in like community work as well, and just making their first attempts in organizing and addressing like systemic issues, starting from their households and starting with their communities. Inshallah. So actually, okay. Okay, I have one more quick question. I know actually Sister Ismahan actually has a session very shortly after this, so I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I think just as a maybe closing point, if you wanted to perhaps address how just being a Black Muslim and then existing in these spaces, how that has influenced your overall experience with Islam and things of that sort, inshallah. Whoever wants.
Leah, do you want to go for it?
I saw you mute.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. My faith is my strength. If there's anything that I navigate through this world, if there's anything that I've seen, subhanallah, we're already living in a world where we're already strangers. And we know that Prophet ﷺ said, glad tidings to the stranger. So if there's anything that I hang on to, is the strength of being able to hold on to the robe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we're also living in a world where we're inundated with so many different theologies and opinions of what liberation looks like. And folks are like searching for these answers when in reality we have the gift in and of itself. Islam is a liberating ideology. Islam is a liberating faith. Alhamdulillah, Allah Azza wa Jal completed this faith for us on Yawm al-Arafah, right? And so in honor of the history of what we're standing on, change has never come easy. We know that the Prophet ﷺ, the way he's going about it, and even before the Prophet ﷺ, all the way to Adam ﷺ, up until this day, and will forever continue on until the day that we all return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're going to be strangers upon this earth. And understanding that Islam, Allah Azza wa Jal created us in different cultures, in different languages, so that we may get to know one another, lita'arafu, right? And Islam didn't come to put a race above another race or nationality, or this concept of nationalism that exists. There's a difference between having pride in who you are, in your culture, in your heritage, and a completely different ideology when you're like, that's it, this is the top nationality, this is it, we are the absolute best in everything, and no other culture, no other race can compete with us, because then we're following into that footsteps of shaitan. So I want to leave with this example, understanding that before any of my identities, I'm a Muslim, and especially in a lot of the spaces that I am holding down and I'm part of, my Islam is going to be first and foremost, simply because my heart, my soul is attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and without Allah we can't get liberation. I always say, just as hard as you fight for liberation, make sure you're fighting extra hard for your soul's salvation, inshallah. And so with that understanding, and addressing anti-Blackness within our community and also from a systemic level now becomes a duty upon us as Muslims, irregardless of what your nationality is, irregardless of what you're dealing with. We're all dealing with the impacts of Islamophobia. We're dealing with the Muslim ban and so many other policies that keep our communities divided and hurting. And then comes this other layer of, what does Islam teach us? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want from us? And that is simple. Allah commanded us to establish justice. And just like he told the Prophet ﷺ, and some of you may have seen me in the mass space talking about this, like, Ya ayyuhal mudaththir qum fa'anzir, and then like, oh, you who's wrapped up in cloaks, like, get up and warn. And the other component of that was, Ya ayyuhal muzammil qum al-layla illa qalila, right? Or you who's enveloped in cloaks, like, get up and pray for almost the entire night except for a little bit of it. So there's that spiritual strength that we draw from us being connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that should manifest and show up in the ways that we are upholding justice and equity in the world and addressing systemic injustices and systemic racism, both within and outside. So my leaving message is understanding the role that we play, especially for youth and young adults. I consider everybody to be a youth. SubhanAllah, I think you hit a certain age where everybody becomes a youth. Alhamdulillah. So I see all of you as like really young, mashallah, and being able to just take on this ownership of Islam and this ownership of establishing justice. And just because you are not Black yourself does not mean that you don't have a role to play to kind of dismantle racism, both from within and outside. So when folks start seeing the intersections of the kind of world that we're living in, then we see the beauty of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the angels, that he created mankind to be vicegerents upon this earth. right? And so you feel that sense of pride of saying, yeah, subhanallah, Allah had a vision for us, you know, and now it's time for me to manifest.
Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful closing. I'm not even gonna try to do the moderator wrap up spiel behind that. It's useless. So yeah, but I did want to, that is one of my favorite hadith. Just Islam began as something strange and will return to being something strange, just as it was in the beginning. So glad tidings to the stranger, inshallah. Well, yeah, did you also want to close?
Yes. I think one thing the sister said that kind of resonated with me was when she mentioned like how Adam was created from clay and how Iblis was created from fire, and how like he like, you know, he refused to bow down because he was like, oh, I'm created from fire and I'm created, or like Adam is created from clay. Prophet Adam alayhi salam is created from clay and I'm created from fire. So that's exactly, well, not exactly, but kind of similar to racism if we think about it. And I actually never thought about it that way until today. Um, so like knowing that racism is not like part of Islam, like anti-blackness, like racism and everything in general is not Islam, it's just part of Muslims. And she also mentioned something saying that Islam is perfect, but Muslims aren't perfect. So it's just unlearning a lot of things and like just acknowledging the Black Muslims within your community. For example, I'm from Chicago, and I know that there are a lot of Black mosque or like Black Muslim spaces just because we don't feel comfortable going to the Arab space. I know one of my friends, she like just similar to me, like she went to there's this mosque in Chicago called IMC or MIC, I don't remember. But basically she said that it was Jummah and she tried to pray with the ladies and everyone just kept like moving away from her, you know? So that's like something that we face every day. Like that's something like forget about being Muslim. But imagine if I'm on the bus, the first thing that I notice is people don't want to sit next to me, you know, because I'm Muslim and I'm Black. And then imagine facing that same issue in our Muslim community. So it's just like she said, a lot of youth here, and it's just a lot of learning and unlearning a lot of things, and just I don't know, just be like a good ally and just not about like saying things or beyond posting stuff on your Instagram or social media. It also has to do with like you yourself and like being. Zahar, stop making that face. I'm sorry. It's about you and about what you believe in. And I just want everyone to take this with them and like after the session, just think about it. What do you think about Black Muslims? Like, in all honesty, like what do you guys think about Black Muslims in your spaces? Or do you have Black Muslim friends? Or do you have Black friends? And how do you feel about them? Do you have any like I don't know prejudice against them? Like, you know, you need to start asking yourself these questions if you want to be the ally that you claim that you are. So um so I guess that's just what I want to close with. Just ask yourself those questions.
Thank you, Elliot. Always great to do some self-reflection and really check in with ourselves. And are we doing more than Instagram stories? Because that's really an important thing to ask. So again, thank you so much, Sister Ismahan and Walia, for your time and wisdom and energy and knowledge, and for sharing your experiences and your insight, and for providing our community with solid action plans and points of reflection. We hope to apply this knowledge and what we've learned from your experiences and use our privileges and acknowledge our internal biases and also learn from them. To our audience, thank you all for joining us tonight, and thank you for being willing to learn and unlearn with us. In an effort to encourage the direct application of knowledge beyond the computer screen and to be able to take what we've learned offline per se, the youth team will post notes and action items from today so we can carry on with this in our daily lives. It's important to listen and learn, but as we've heard today, it's also important to think about our own circles and apply and take action. Let's all try to do our parts to do so, inshallah. So thank you again. we do have this like icebreaker session for the youth if you guys want to stay. I know Sister Ismahan has another lecture. Well, yet we're about to eat dinner, but yeah. Anyways, so with love, in community and in solidarity, let's close this session. Subhanallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Thank you so much, Sister Ismahan. That was beautiful. That was so great.
Work with
You can leave, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Hold on, I'm still on here. Okay. Sorry guys. I'm gonna pass it over to Laika for Kahoot, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna leave outreach department on just in case, but I will text me if you need me. Bye.
Hey, assalamu alaikum everyone. Just to keep going with our topic of the lecture, we will be doing, our icebreaker for today will be a Black History Kahoot. Let me get that ready first. Okay, so if you can pull out like a different device or your phone or whatever, then that should be good. Okay, there we go. Let's hope you all remembered like A push or gov or something. So good luck, you guys.
Also, just saying, if anybody wants to turn their cameras on now, if you aren't on a phone, if you're just like if you're using Zoom through like your laptop, feel free to turn your camera on.
Yeah,
Sure,
please turn your cameras on. Also, use appropriate names, please. Okay, we're gonna give it another couple minutes before we start. Why did it go from 14 players to 11 players? Come on, guys.
Everyone join. It's about learning.
Come on, even if you do bad, it's okay. It's about learning.
And if you do bad, at least we all.
Also, if y'all want to like talk or say anything, feel free to unmute yourself. The floor is open.
Okay, at 8:10, I'm gonna start. So get your names in.
Invite your friends.
Invite your friends. This is for everyone.
Hey. All right, guys, we have 20 participants, but we only have 15 players. Come on, guys, where are y'all at? So let's get it going.
I don't know.
What'd you guys think of the session?
Good question. Anyone want to answer it? Not from the committee. Anyone, like our general members? Any of y'all want to answer
Yeah,
it?
feel free. What'd you guys think?
Maybe what'd you say? You want to say something?
Oh, she
Thumbs up. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, bro.
Why are people leaving?
I'm back.
Okay, there we go.
Yusuf,
Okay, 1 minute. Come on, guys.
Yusuf, you should turn your camera on. Moose, you should turn your camera on too. Mubashir, come on, folks. Don't be shy. We all know each other. I wish there was a button where I could turn all your cameras on. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Okay, it's 8:10. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start now. Okay, guys.
hopefully the event prepped us for this. We get
well,
into dubs. We get into dubs.
It wasn't really.
Yeah, let's go. Dub season
Oh
B.
no.
Wait, what? Oh.
What?
Oh, I think I got that.
Yeah, there's no time for looking up on Google. This is cheat proof.
Yes, I'm on the podium, baby.
She has a Netflix show, Madam CJ Walker. He has that Netflix show. It was really good. I liked it.
I think I'm getting put in my place now.
Is that you, son?
Oh, let's go. Number one, baby.
Okay, Ihsan.
You can school me. Don't worry about it.
Ooh.
You know this question?
Obviously.
Obviously, it's the blue one, guys.
No cap. Barack Obama, best Supreme Court.
Johnny Cochran, what's up? Don't know Johnny Cochran. Oh my God, wait, I actually voted for the blue one. Sorry if you listened to me.
Who's okay,
sorry.
Oh, someone could actually read the quiz as well if you want the question.
Oh my God, I don't know this. I'm gonna give it a hot.
This.
Oh, this is going by too fast. Oh my God.
Let's go, baby.
Ihsan and MJ. I don't know who that is.
What's your Jolan? I see you.
MJ, Magician Jobar. Bro.
Oh, okay. I know this.
Wait, this is a good quiz.
Yeah, this is a really good quiz.
Thank you. Me and Hannah worked on it.
Brown Brown versus Brown. It's got to be Brown.
Wow.
Everybody guys, tap into that AP Gov knowledge.
Let's go. 1954, I think was it 1954? And I think it was.
Yeah.
This is Loving versus Virginia, baby.
Why'd you say that?
Sorry.
You sound like your answer out loud.
Sorry, my bad. I like to think out loud. If you guys can't tell, and
everyone got it right, or except for one person.
Say the wrong answer. So you can basically.
That was a freebie. I got y'all.
Good
Hey,
job.
Musa, I can see you.
No, Ihsan basically said the answer out loud. I mean, he did. So.
Okay. Dude, okay, I definitely don't know this one.
Ooh.
Oh, is
Come
that
on,
this?
A push,
Ooh.
AP Gov.
Come on, AP Gov, A push, let's go.
I think I got it wrong. I think I got it wrong. Oh,
Yeah.
astaghfirullah.
Yes. He said astaghfirullah.
Yeah, that's right. Astaghfirullah.
Tobat.
I was getting
He's
too
still
cocky. I was getting too
first.
cocky. I need to calm her down. Okay, I got this. These are good questions. Yeah.
Oh. Interesting.
Good answers, right? Those are pretty close.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Yuri. Good job, Yuri. Winky face.
Okay. What is it the grand? What? Oh my god, all choices.
Technically right,
Stupid.
but it's all of them.
Stupid. God, y'all really got me with this one. Dang it.
You're still first. You're still first.
I know, but I could have stretched my lead. But now MJ could
I'm just
come back.
catching up.
I'm just gonna moonwalk straight into you, man.
Don't choke, bro.
Oh,
Yeah, I get it.
okay, I think it.
Took me a second.
Almost stole.
Hope this answer sticks with y'all. 381 days. This one's kind of hard. I'm not gonna lie. This one's
I
kind
have no idea. I've never heard it. I've never. Oh wow.
One person. Congratulations, one person.
Shout out.
Job.
That was definitely.
Thanks.
Oh dang.
Oh.
Oh man.
Just kidding.
Oh.
Oh, I messed up.
I think I messed up.
Oh,
Fun. Got it right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I'm very proud of you, son. You're still first place. Good job.
Yeah.
Does not know the answers, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, this I don't know this one. I'm just gonna go on a limb and say that.
Civil rights movement. Come on.
Oh
Yes.
my.
Everything was going down. Okay, Black Msa.
This emoji. Is that a Muslim girl emoji?
Who's that? Who's that?
I thought it was an owl at first.
I think that is that. I
Are
think
you
that's a
calling
hidden.
Muslim women owls?
Sorry.
Allah.
Oh.
Cancelled.
Dang.
What does this mean?
Oh, I want to say.
That music made me nervous. I'm
Okay,
not playing.
I definitely got this wrong. I don't know any. I only know WEB, but he's a poet.
No, I didn't even answer.
I think everyone picked him because they recognize that name.
Yeah, everyone took an.
W.E.B. Du Bois is he was
the
he was a founder of one of the founders of NAACP, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's who he is.
Benjamin Banneker. Ooh.
Oh,
History buff.
Yeah, I love. Okay, I'm gonna. Wait, no, I think it's. Oh, I think I got. It's too high. The first wasn't one. The first
It's
Muslim.
too high or too low?
I did too high.
Oh.
I did 20.
I feel this one's debatable.
Let me see the facts. Where's your sources? Say your sources, guys.
Let's go.
Let's check the facts. Because I heard there's like 12% to 15% as well. But anyways.
Oh my god, I have no idea. I'm just gonna go with this.
Living Legacy Award. Imagine winning a Living
cool.
Legacy Award.
Go,
That would be so
baby.
cool.
Dub season.
Oh wow.
Oh, I don't know this question. None of these. I know none.
Gonna get it right.
I definitely got it wrong. I've never learned this. Oh, I got it right though.
Wow, good job.
Oh, it
Wow.
looks like Yasmin is the
Yeah.
Punjabi. Oh, girl.
Oh, is the
Cowboy
cowboy emoji? Is that Zucky? No. I'm gonna go on a limb and ask. Yeah, thought so.
Interesting.
Angela Davis. Definitely.
Yes.
Good job. Oh.
Oh,
Good.
this is a good one. Oh, yeah.
Didn't they talk about this in the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see if you were paying attention. Let's go. Good job, guys.
If you guys don't know who he is, Mahmoud Abdurraf, he was a basketball player in the NBA. He played basketball at LSU. He was like the 4th or 5th overall pick in like the 19-something draft. And he was, one of the first to sit for the national anthem.
Thank you.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Here's my job. Hey.
Yay.
Almost there.
Oh, dope.
I don't know this one.
Oh man, it's gonna make me drop. This no. Ah.
Damn.
Okay, last question, y'all. Hun's on the lead. Okay, I think at this point it's safe to say that you're probably gonna win, Ihsan, but
Yeah. Inshallah. Oh, what? I know why the cage birds.
Let's go.
Oh.
I have no idea, to be honest.
I think. Come on.
Nope.
Good
What?
job.
Time is up.
Good job,
Time is-
everyone.
I failed.
I had no time to answer.
I got schooled. I like that.
Podium. Sun emoji. Good job.
The sun emoji.
Muslim girl.
Yay, Yasmin.
And
Yay, Panitia.
Ihsan.
Hey.
What's the prize? What's the prize though? Shout out to Mariam and MJ. 4th and 5th.
Good job.
So much cost.
Okay, that's the end of that.
Is this still recording?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I think they cut it off like right after the session.
Yeah.
Look at the percentage. It's okay. We had a learning moment.
It was good. I hope everyone learned something.
So I think we should do intros now. I mean, like last time, remember, like we shared like we did like where you call the friend type thing. We should do that now, and maybe you can do like a fun fact or whatever you want to say, like highlight of this week, what you do or something like that. Oh, if everyone can go on mute who's not talking, and if people who don't have their cameras on, if they want to turn their cameras on now, that'd be appreciated.
Please turn your cameras on.
Hey.
Nice.
Oh my god, wow. A lot of you guys turned them on. That's really fast.
They were waiting.
Yeah, bro.
They're on standby.
All right. So, hi, my name. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ihsan. I'm from Wisconsin, and the highlight of this week is that I went golfing with my friends and I played well. And I also took a dub in this in this I would say Quizlet, but in the Kahoot. So that's another highlight of my week. So I'm gonna call on Ivy to yeah.
What do I say my name again? All right, so I'm
Just say your
Ibrahim.
name and then like a fun fact or highlight of this week.
The highlight is the Zoom. Hey, I call him my boy Mubashir.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Mubashir, and the highlight of this week is soccer training started again this week. Yeah. And
Just to call on someone. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I call out Honest.
Assalamualaikum, my name's Honest. I think one big highlight of this week was that just before this session, I think you guys noticed I was late. Before that, I had carne asada fries. So yeah. All right. Let me see. Let's popcorn.
Did you make them yourself or like did you buy them?
No, there's so like in my area, there's like a nearby halal Mexican.
Yo.
It's called Pura Vida. You guys gotta come over, man. Los Angeles, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. It was supposed to be in Muktamar, LA.
Inshallah. Let me popcorn. Let's see. Let's say Mariam.
California, and I went camping this week. It wasn't very fun because the person next to me, they had a trailer and their trailer had like Second Amendment and then guns, glory, and then I forgot what the other word was, but it's like guts, and I was like, oh. And then they had like, you know that flag that the Blue Lives Matter people have with like the blue stripe? Yeah, it was on that. And I was like, oh, okay.
This
That
wasn't
wasn't
your
really a
highlight.
highlight, but it's like, oh.
This is the worst moment of your week.
Something exciting though.
Exciting.
It was nice, but like I was just like, whoa. But yeah, I will go to a diva.
I'll go first. Even though Mariam called Andisa, my highlight was yesterday, my MSA, we're almost done with our halakha about story. The Zoom is still okay, everyone. Well, I guess everyone gets to hear our highlight. So we're almost done, and it was nice because we haven't. My highlight is we were the sun emoji on the Kahoot, so we got third.
Congratulations. Oh wait, you hit the popcorn to someone.
My highlight is I guess the pizza right here. Yeah. I call on Shafi.
Do I have to turn the camera on? You don't have to if you don't want to, but we're all friends here, so.
I'm too lazy to put on my hijab, so just pretend. My highlight of the week was yesterday. I don't know if you guys heard, but Seattle have Chaz, like the 6 blocks, like police-free place. I forgot like what Chaz stands for, but I went there to support the Black Lives Matter, and it was really cool. It was really nice to meet like the Black leaders there, so I thought that was nice. So yeah, I'm gonna call on Kansa.
What were we doing? Sorry. Just say your name and a highlight of your week.
Okay, my name is Khansa, and the highlight was we set up our ping pong table in our basement, so we started.
Okay, then popcorn to someone else.
Popcorn. Got Hanya.
Assalamualaikum guys. Sorry, the video's off. Too lazy to put my hijab on as well. But a highlight of this week would probably be finishing one of my summer courses. Actually, just finished taking an exam recently, so. Alright, let's see. Who has not been called on? No one answered.
I mean, I haven't been called on if you want to call on me.
All right, Laika.
Okay. My name is Laika, and the highlight of my week was yesterday I got a bunch of stuff for my turtle tank with my mom. So that was nice. Okay, I'm going to popcorn to Ali.
So my highlight was probably I got enough sleep this week. Fair enough.
Good one. Wait, you have to popcorn to someone else.
When yeah. How about Hanan? She already went.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay. Oh yeah, I didn't go yet, so you're good. I'm Hanan, and highlight of this week was making that Kahoot with Laika. It was really fun. I'm trying to see who hasn't been popcorn yet. Yana, have you been popcorned?
I have not.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh wait, are you doing a thing?
No.
Okay.
Okay. No, I just finished. Okay. So everyone. I'm Felicia or Kiana. And the highlight of my week would be I filed my first bankruptcy client.
Oh, what does that mean?
Okay. Popcorn.
Oh, okay.
Budley.
How are you gonna leave her like that?
You didn't answer a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, who's going?
Wait, was there a question?
Yeah, I asked you what that meant.
Someone is filing for bankruptcy.
So that's okay. Well.
Oh, I thought when you were talking, I thought you said you filed for bankruptcy. I was like, bro, what? You're alhamdulillah, not that.
Not me.
Yeah.